Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. Today we have a manga review of chapter 900, Bad and Musical. And fuck me. What in the hell just happened? This chapter has me shocked, confused, annoyed, and yet absurdly intrigued. This chapter is super dark, but we're going to ignore just about everything that happened during the bulk of it to begin with, and skip straight to the apparent destruction of the Thousand Sunny and speculated defeat of the Straw Hat Pirates. There's nothing vague, at least in the imagery, about how this chapter ended. The Sunny is quite clearly seen on fire and crumbling after the assault from the Queen Mama Chanta. Naturally, this turn of events has come as a surprise to most people, which has led to immediate theories regarding the realism of the situation. And I'm going to go through a couple, starting with what seems to be most popular at the moment, which is the idea that all of these events are taking place entirely within Big Mom's mind, and are part of her blissful fantasy. I'm definitely not going to put it past Oda to do such a thing, although I think it would be a pretty damn big tease. The primary piece of evidence that supports this idea is that Big Mom's musical number takes over every bit of dialogue at a certain point, possibly implying that the events from there on in are completely within her psyche. I also read a pretty cool comment regarding the title of the chapter being Bad and Musical, which really reflects the multiple endings that you might get in a visual novel style game. So with that in mind, the next chapter could be entitled Good End Something or Other, and we see how things really play out when not inside Big Mom's head. With all of that said, I really don't like the whole fantasy theory because I just find it hard to believe that Big Mom knows the relevant details of exactly where the Straw Hats, the Germa, and even where the composition of her own forces are at this point. The details are just too specific, so I do think that Big Mom is definitely in her own private fantasy realm at the moment, but all of the events we've seen are taking place in tandem with that. The next theory going around is that somebody is using Future Sight. Yeah, this isn't really credible to me at all. The only person currently conscious who can use Future Sight is Luffy, and he really can't do it all that well. So I doubt he's seeing this far into the future. I mean, maybe Katakuri has regained consciousness and seen all of this occurring, but just please no. He's got to be down for the rest of this arc, surely. The final main theory I've seen going around is that all of this is a result of Pudding tampering with Big Mom's memories. And of the three possibilities I've stated, I think this one is the most credible just based on how the chapter is presented to us. Pudding would have the kind of detailed knowledge required to weave things together, make Big Mom think she'd won, and that all was right with the world, while the Straw Hats escape. The only problem is, she'd have to manipulate so many other people for this to work, like Oven, Mont d'Or, Smoothie, and you know what, let's face it, pretty much every member of the Big Mom Pirates present, which is an entire armada. And Pudding definitely isn't capable of manipulating memories en masse unless she is somehow awakened her Devil Fruit power, so I think that this theory is out the door as well. Which leaves us with the pretty grim option of this is reality. Which isn't to say that this is the end of the Straw Hats. Even if the Thousand Sunny is in shambles, I can see its remnants being scooped up by some ally like the Germa and being transported to another island for Franky to repair and improve. I also don't think the destruction of the Sunny is a horrible outcome in terms of the arc. I mean, Capone's ship got sunk, so I'd expect the Straw Hat ship to follow suit. And I've also said this roughly a billion times now, but you can't just go into the territory of a Yonko and expect to leave unscathed. If the Straw Hats can make it out having lost everything that isn't their lives, they should still be considered lucky. Although I guess there is another option. Essentially, they get defeated here and captured. However, there are a few avenues of escape waiting for them after that. Firstly, Pudding could come clean and reveal that it was Sanji who baked the cake, prompting Big Mom to free them because let's be real, she is guided by her food lust more than any other decision-making factor. Her price for their freedom could be as simple as Sanji making another cake even. Also, we now have an unlikely ally in Charlotte Katakuri who could spring them out after his recovery, although I really don't want to go down that path because I feel like there's a lot to resolve in this current series of events before this whole capture thing even becomes an option. For example, I feel like the Big Mom Pirates are celebrating just a little bit too early in regards to the condition of their matriarch. Previously, Perospero stated that there were only 3 outcomes which would result from Big Mom eating the cake. This week has made it pretty clear to me that there is a 4th outcome which he missed, to no fault of his own. This chapter went to great lengths to compare the pure bliss Big Mom has attained from eating the wedding cake to that which she experienced in her childhood, which led to the disappearance of everyone she knew and loved, although to us it was pretty clear that she had eaten each and every single one of them. So if this is indeed a similar situation, I think that the Big Mom pirates should have a hell of a lot to fear. Big Mom in a state of pure food bliss may be even more dangerous than one of her hunger tantrums. In the coming chapters, I think we may get a proper glimpse at exactly what Lin Lin did on the day of her birthday through her future actions in this arc. And eventually, I expect this level of bliss to overpower and knock her out as intended, just as she fell unconscious on her birthday. So yeah, I don't think the rampage is over quite yet, and in fact Sanji has quite possibly, unknowingly, awakened an even more terrifying beast. Speaking of terrifying beasts, Sulong Pekoms has still yet to make his glorious appearance. Given how afraid everybody was of him transforming, I think that he would be more than enough to alleviate Germa's current situation, which would free them up to further assist the Straw Hats, as well as ensure their own escape. Also, there's a certain gas man floating around somewhere who we haven't heard of in quite some time. I mean, I know Caesar can fly, but he more than likely needs a decent escape route from Whole Cake Island as well. So he might show up with a weapon of mass destruction that he just had lying around to deal that much more damage to the legion of Big Mom pirates and escape with whoever will take him. So surprisingly, there are a couple of things we can discuss in this chapter free of speculation. The first of which is that it looks like Charlotte Snack has set up a date with Vinsmoke Judge. And I am all for this. Ever since his teeny tiny introduction panel, I have been very keen to see this dumpling man fight. And you know what, even though we're probably supposed to be on his side, I'd also be pretty keen to see him wipe the floor with Judge. I guess I don't really mind if the fight goes the other way as well, I just want some action from that final sweet commander, even if he technically isn't one anymore. There's also a super cool figure with a scythe who has appeared before the Germa siblings. He gives me a very Jack Skellington vibe, and from what I've seen of him so far, I love his design. Of course, he is more than likely another Charlotte sibling as well, which is cool. We still haven't seen them all, so throw them at us quickly while we still have the time. And the final thing I did want to mention is the color spread, which is just adorable and filled with a lot of really cool detail. In no particular order, Sanji is barbecuing a carrot right in front of Carrot, who is looking at it rather tantalizingly. And it took me forever to realize this, but Pekoms is also lurking in the background with his tongue out. I imagine that being a cat, he's pretty keen for the fish that's also being cooked. And in the middle we can see Chopper with a rose for his mink girlfriend, which is surely going to become canon after this. I swear that once the Straw Hats have found the One Piece and Chopper has achieved his dream, he will retire on Zou and have a family with this reindeer lady. Another thing that took me forever to notice is that Nami is fishing money out of the water, and what's his name, Sicilian, I think, is looking at the bag of money in a very confused manner. Rather predictably, Treetop Pedro is standing alone on a tree, and this is just really sad because he's also depicted as being in the clouds, alluding to his death. It's just so depressing because everyone else is interacting with somebody or something and Pedro is just standing there watching over the little village. But that pretty much does it for chapter 900. I went through the whole spiel last week about how amazing it is to have reached the 900 mark, so I'm not going to repeat myself. Instead, I'll just verbalize the horrible reminder that we have a break next week. Given how long we've been going without a break, this is definitely a well-deserved break for Oda, but my god, I wish it had not been immediately after this chapter. Now we'll be dealing with 2 weeks of intense speculation that questions our very perceptions of reality. With all of that said, this was a really enjoyable chapter in a dark way. I love any time I fail to predict One Piece, which is more often or not, so if you can keep surprising me, I'm generally a happy guy. So well done chapter 900, and as always, I'm looking forward to the next one. If you enjoyed this video, then feel free to like, favorite, or subscribe, and please do comment with your thoughts on the chapter. And I mean that so much more than any other week, because there is a lot to digest and speculate over. So go crazy, guys. This has been the Grand Line Review, and I'll see you next time.